Friends, welcome to the Other Mind channel. Most of us live in towns and villages, in habitual apartments or houses. But some daredevils ruin the idea of normal housing. Some of them live on the water, others on cliffs, and some settle in the rocks and underground. Here are the top 15 strangest places for people to live. Let's go! Koh PANYI Village, Thailand. The floating island is a very unusual place to live. For about 200 years, this island has been inhabited by fishermen with their families, who formerly lived in Indonesia. At one time, foreigners were not allowed to own land in Thailand, which is why the Indonesians decided to settle right on the water, because of finding a great fishing spot near Phuket. Today, the fishing village is already home to more than 1,500 people. Children go to school there, there's a market and a mosque. The villagers even built a soccer field for the children to play on. After that, the local team has become one of the best in all of Thailand. The village even has a police force, but there's only one police officer. For 2 long centuries, fishing was the main occupation here. But after the crisis in the 90s, the village became a tourist destination where restaurants and souvenir shops opened. Nevertheless, many villagers are still engaged exclusively in fishing to honor the traditions of their ancestors. Manshiyat Nasser, Egypt. Just imagine, this city is completely covered with garbage. More than 60,000 people live here and live among mountains of waste. The inhabitants of the town are also called garbage collectors because they collect waste from all of Cairo, which has more than 20 million inhabitants. Garbage collectors sort waste for their disposal and recycling. Casa do Penedo, Portugal. In the mountains of Faf is an unusual structure, Casa do Penedo, which translates as House of the Rock. In the 1970s, engineer Victor Rodriguez decided to build something in the Flintstone style. He wanted to seamlessly blend the dwelling into the surrounding landscape so that everything looked as natural as possible. The house was built of several stones of enormous size. It was as if sandwiched between them. Due to its isolated location, uninvited guests often tried to get into the unusual house. Some even succeeded. Due to the robberies, the homeowner installed a metal front door and even bulletproof windows. Today, the place is visited by many tourists who want to look at the marvelous creation. Al-HAJARAH, Yemen. An unusual walled city impresses you by beauty in the Sinai province at the top of the Haraz Mountains. Even the locals don't know exactly when people settled here. According to scientists, it happened around the 12th century. The ancient customs and culture are still preserved here. The inhabitants of the city grow fruit, wheat, and other crops. They also produce cotton and breed horses and camels. The houses here, with their many floors, look a lot like skyscrapers. The lower floors have no windows, and the color of the buildings allows them to blend in with the rocks. These structures played the role of fortifications during the Turkish occupation. An amazing place that is definitely worth a visit, but to go on a tour here is better with a guide, otherwise you can get lost. Also, it's not a good idea to stay until nighttime, when the temperature drops sharply to 0 degrees Celsius. Xuankanzi, China. The unique hanging monastery of Xuankanzi is located on the cliff of Mount Hang in Shaanxi province. Everything about this structure is striking for its age. It was built in the 5th century, location and architecture. The monastery literally floats in the air. It's at the height of 40 to 50 meters from the ground. Although the monastery is not easy to get to at all, it does not stop tourists. To make it easier to reach the temple, they have built steps that lead to the entrance. It's especially striking that 3 different religions coexist here: Taoism, Buddhism, and Confucianism. In the halls of the monastery, different religions are represented, with which you can get acquainted closer. The temple is open to tourists all year round. The monastery has its own rules for visitors, who should behave calmly and quietly and move in a circle to avoid crowds of people. It's astonishing how tens of centuries ago they were able to build such an extraordinary structure, and how it has survived in perfect condition to this day. MATMATA, Tunisia. The most astonishing and strange attraction in Tunisia is probably MATMATA. Its peculiarity consists of underground dwellings unnoticeable at first sight, which looks like hills on the ground. The locals essentially live in caves that are connected by tunnels and have separate excavated rooms. Since MATMATA was featured in the Star Wars film, it has gained enormous popularity among tourists who want a glimpse of this wondrous city underground. The place where the film was shot was turned into a hotel. There are 5 houses underground, one of which was turned into a restaurant. If you want to stay here, book the place in advance because there are only 20 rooms. Monasteries of METEORA, Greece. A popular destination among tourists in Greece is the 6 preserved monasteries of METEORA, built on the mountain as if they were hanging above the ground. 4 monasteries are male and 2 female. In total, more than 20 of them were built. The first monastery appeared in 1340. At the end of the 80s of the last century, monasteries were included in the list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. These constructions are of enormous value as a natural phenomenon and an object of world cultural significance. The most famous one is the Holy Monastery of Ruzenu, built by 2 brothers in honor of Saint Barbara. The Principality of SEALAND. The unusual principality of an offshore platform is located in the North Sea near Great Britain. It was founded in the late 1960s by the military man Roy Bates, thus protesting the persecution and closure of pirate radio stations. SEALAND is a platform 20 meters above the water, the size of 2 tennis courts, which previously served as a fortification. Roy has set up a pirate radio station in his principality with 24-hour music. The smallest principality has its own coat of arms, a black and red flag with a wide diagonal, and even its own passports. Today, SEALAND even has an Instagram page, a Facebook page, and a YouTube channel. Throughout its existence, just over 50 people, the founder's family, their friends and relatives, and support staff have lived in SEALAND. Home on an island on St. Lawrence River. On the border of Canada and the United States, there is a tiny island on which stands a house. The Sizeland family bought Hob Island in the middle of the last century to escape the hustle and bustle of the city. They later renamed it to just Room Enough Island, which translates to barely fit. The place turned out to be so astonishing that crowds of tourists came to see the unusual house on the island. The area of the island is just over 300 square meters. You step out of the house and there is water all around. Verkhoyansk, Russia. At a distance of almost 5,000 kilometers from Moscow, there is the coldest town on the planet, Verkhoyansk. The city, located in the Siberian taiga, is also called the Pole of Cold. The locals clearly suffer from the lack of sun rays and vitamin D, because in winter there's no sun at all. Moreover, from September to March, the sun comes out only for 5 hours. It was here that traders and citizens unwanted by the Soviet regime were formerly exiled. A town in Yakutia with a population of about 1,000 people is now beginning a bit of a revival. Despite the severe frost, which sometimes drops below 60 degrees Celsius, tourists and extreme enthusiasts come to Verkhoyansk dreaming of staying in one of the town's icy hotels. Cappadocia, Turkey. Cappadocia is one of the oldest places of permanent residence of people. Today, more than 2,500 locals live here, mostly in monasteries and temples. This unique area was formed in the 1st millennium BC, and today it's listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The unusual landscape in the form of pillars, bizarre canyons and pyramids were formed by natural processes, when for millions of years rains and winds destroyed the fragile mountainous rock. In the mountains of Cappadocia, cave monasteries and whole underground cities are hidden. Here is the Gorham Historical National Park, which is a museum under the sky. Nearby are hotels and restaurants that host visitors. Cappadocia is visited by thousands of tourists every day. Especially impressive is the opportunity to rise above the ground in a hot air balloon and see all the beauty of this place from a flying altitude. Indeed, there is a lot to see in Cappadocia. In addition to the national park, you can visit the Uchisar Castle, Avanos Town, the underground cities, the fairy chimneys, and the Red and Rose Valley. Setenil de las Bodegas, Spain. It's an amazing town with a magical landscape where huge rocks overhang the houses and streets as if protecting their inhabitants from the hot sun and strong winds. The houses here are hidden in the mountains, making that look simply unreal. The town of Satanil de las Bodegas has been hiding in the rocks for thousands of years. Archaeologists find the remains of people who lived in caves, which are more than 25,000 years old. The city is fascinating with its beauty. Although it has already been rebuilt many times, it still retains its charm and style. It's the most amazing white town in the south of Spain. Many tourists come here to admire the local beauty and enjoy the delicious food and wine. Greenland. The largest island on the planet is home to just over 55,000 locals. It has the highest suicide rate with 83 suicides per 100,000 people. This sparsely populated island people share with the eternal cold and polar bears. In Greenland, you can see the most beautiful polar lights. Most of the island has 3 months of summer and 24-hour sunshine, followed by 3 months of solid night. Most of the island is covered by glaciers. The coldest part of the island is in the center, with winter temperatures often dropping to -60°C. The locals are Greenlandic Inuit, who make up more than 90% of the population. A national dish that tourists should try is boiled seal meat. Cherrapunji, India. Cherrapunji is considered to be the wettest place on Earth with record rainfall. The soil here is very poor. It's constantly washed out by downpours. About 10,000 people living in this village are severely affected by the lack of drinking water. It rains almost every day in this village, so agriculture is not developed at all. The people of Cherrapunji work in industrial plants and engage in trade. The local people are called Kazi. They build living bridges out of trees, guiding their routes across the river to the other side. It takes about 10 to 20 years to build one bridge, but such constructions serve reliably for many years. These were the top 15 strangest places to live. Please give us a like, subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss anything. Share in the comments which place in our list impressed you the most. Where would you like to visit?